And also, kids can't yet be vaccinated. So right now it's 16 and older that we can vaccinate for Pfizer, for example, but we're still undergoing trials for the younger children to be vaccinated with Moderna, with Pfizer. So we're still waiting on that. Yeah, I mean, I think it's important to encourage and emphasize the benefits of being vaccinated. Number one, it can keep you out of the hospital. It can prevent you from dying. Not only are you protecting yourself, but you're protecting others in the community. And when you become vaccinated, we can open up. We can go to concerts. We can go to restaurants. We don't have to worry about social distancing and masking if we all can do our part. So ultimately, if we're at about 30% of Americans being fully vaccinated right now. If we can get that number up to 70 to 85% per the CDC recommendations, then we can resume a normal lifestyle, and it's going to be worth it to me. Yeah, I think it's important because, again, only a third of Americans are fully vaccinated with these very safe and effective vaccines, Moderna and Pfizer. But we do have to get that number up higher before we can resume normal activity. I think that's very important. And it's also important that if you start your first dose, you get your second dose, because there's many who are not making the appointments for their second doses, and you will not get that 94, 95% safety and efficacy if you don't get both doses. That's critical. And wearing a mask isn't just to protect yourself. You're actually helping to protect others who may not be vaccinated yet, who may be more vulnerable. So you're not just doing it for yourself, you're doing it for your community and overall health of America.
Okay. Some of you are saying, who is this and what are we watching? Her name is Jeanette Nidwash, Trump's pick for Surgeon General. Now, I've been putting out some tweets today and taking a small bit of flack for it because people are saying, Viva, trust the plan. And they're not saying it quite like that. They're saying, Viva, trust Trump and his picks. Oh, Viva, she's seen the light. She's come around. That was from 2021, people. Okay, now I'm going to say a number of things here. This is going to be something of a detailed rant. I wanted to do it in the car, but I just didn't have the time today. You know, people say trust Trump and his picks. First of all, supporting someone does not mean ratifying everything that they do. Supporting someone might mean making sure they don't make the same mistakes that they made the first time around. 2016, everybody can pretty much unanimously agree Trump made terrible picks. He made terrible picks because he had no experience in politics in Washington. He thought he could trust people, and he thought he could convert people. The art of the deal, he thought he could negotiate with terrorists, basically. So part of supporting Trump means not letting him walk into the same mistakes he made the last time. Some of you are going to say he knows so much more right now. He's had nearly a decade of experience now. He's taken a bullet literally. He knows who he can trust and who he can't. And to that, I might say, okay, he might know more, but nobody is susceptible of not making mistakes. Nobody becomes impervious to making bad decisions. Some of you are going to say, if you elected him, then you trust everything he does, which is a very ironic thing because that's what they were saying about, Kamala Harris. To them, I would say, no. The people voted Trump in, and it wasn't just to defer to his rule, which is what people were expecting when you elect in a Kamala Harris. You defer to her tyrannical rule. No. On the one hand, he still represents the people, but not just that. The people who voted him in expect him to represent their voices in government. And to the extent that he gets in because he's elected by the people in a populist movement and then appoints to positions of power the very same people who were responsible for what many believe to be feel to be a crime against humanity, myself included. No, he doesn't. He's not the boss. He's not the top dog now. He is beholden to some extent to the people that elected him. You don't elect him in to a tyrant. That's what the Democrats were suggesting was going to happen because that's what they know happens when you elect in a Biden, a Kamala Harris. They come in and then they rule regardless of what you want. The people put Trump in power to fight against the very swamp that he might, for whatever the reason, be appointing to positions of power now. So he's not a boss. He is the representative of the people. And if he picks somebody that basically spits in the face of the 76 million people who just voted Trump into power, you're damn right he should hear about it. Now getting to Jeanette. Some people are going to say she's learned her mistake. Oh yeah, she really came around. It's not fair to judge her for what she said in 2021. She now knows the science, and she now knows that she was. First of all, I don't know if she repented and recanted, and honestly, I don't care if she did. You have to understand the problem here. The problem is not that she was wrong. The problem is not that anybody was wrong in and of itself. There are a multitude of reasons for which you could be wrong. You could be wrong for the right reasons. You could be wrong because you just moved too quickly. You could be wrong because you didn't pay attention to a certain detail. You could be wrong because you made mistakes in your work that you showed and that you learned from. The problem is when you're wrong about judgment, when you're wrong because you relied on bad science and promoted bad science because you uncritically supported that bad science, that's not a question of being wrong. The being wrong there is not the problem. The problem is the poor judgment. And when you get out there and you repeat propagandist Pfizer talking points that you had no reason to be repeating, safe and effective, how the hell did you know that? You couldn't have known it because it wasn't around for long enough to be safe and effective. Oh, I was just repeating what Pfizer told me. You had no business repeating that as a matter of fact, let alone putting it into policy. First thing. So bad judgment, panic, relying on the unreliable. You relied on Pfizer, the company that paid the second highest criminal fine in the history of pharma. And you promoted their propaganda. You relied on their falsified figures, falsified numbers, and you actually put it into policy. You promoted what I believe is child abuse, masking up of kids outdoors, social distancing. There never was science behind that. So for her to have repeated that for which there was never science, and that for which she had no reason to repeat as scientific policy, makes the problem here not the fact that she was wrong, but she was wrong for the very, very, very worst wrong reasons. And I haven't even gotten into the censorship part. There's a clip going around that's going viral of supporting censorship. This pick for Surgeon General supporting Facebook's censorship on vaccine misinformation and disinformation. So you have a person who acts too quickly in times of uncertainty, repeats the words of people that she has no business repeating, saying as a matter of fact statements for which she had not only no reason to say as matter of facts, which her medical critical brain should have known could not be said. Safe and effective after 6 months of trials? Had she not heard of Maddie DeGarry back in the day? I did. And in addition to all of that, she then comes out and supports censorship. I don't care what she had by way of born-again revelation. She might be able to be forgiven if you assume that you can forgive people for committing what I believe are crimes against humanity, against children. You might have it in your heart to forgive her. But she is never to be trusted in a position of power ever again. If somebody can't handle a gun, they panic under pressure, and they accidentally shoot somebody that they meant to taser. Well, you might forgive them. You might say they're criminally not liable. But you don't say, all right, now jump back into that position and here's another gun. The only reason why that's not necessarily analogous is somebody can be trained to handle a gun safely. When someone has displayed radically poor judgment, you might be able to forgive them. You might be able to understand how, we were all duped. Hey, I was duped. I never took it upon myself to force anything on anybody else. I was duped. I never supported the idea of masking children. I was duped. The social distancing was a crime against humanity. Locking people up into, she was talking about gatherings, limiting gatherings. These were crimes against humanity for which there was never any science. And people say, trust Donald Trump. You have to rely on his good judgment. Don't let the man make the same mistakes he made the last time. Some people are going to say, well, it's a Surgeon General. She's going to be working under RFK Jr., so she'll be listening to him. That's the dumbest excuse I've ever heard in my life. Oh, she's going to be working under RFK Jr., so put somebody in under RFK Jr. with wildly bad judgment? I don't care. She could be the nicest, sweetest, most sincere person on earth. Then she's sincerely ignorant. Working under RFK Jr., like we haven't seen enough of the sabotage of people working under the people under whom they work. There was people were working under Trump. They sabotaged Trump.
Who needs men when you've got great vibes? I love that. The best gal.
I told him I'd talk to him later because tonight is for the girl.
Working under RFK Jr., like we haven't seen enough of the sabotage of people working under the people under whom they work. There was people were working under Trump. They sabotaged Trump. And some people are going to say, well, RFK was wrong on certain things too. True. But when what they were wrong on is that basically to which they were just appointed to be very powerful decision makers, that's where there's a problem. You could disagree with RFK Jr. on Second Amendment rights, on abortion. Those are very tangentially related, if at all, to his potential nomination or appointment confirmation to HHS. When you're wrong on the subject for which you are appointed to, that's where there's a problem. So, yeah, there's no trusting the plan here. And Trump needs to hear it from the people who voted for him. I didn't vote for him, but I sure as heck believed he was the right person for the position at this time. But you don't just get a pass and say, oh, 3 years later, I realized that what I said was wildly wrong at the time. It's not even as though you could say I had no reason to know that it was wrong at the time. You damn well did. The Barrington Declaration was out there at the time. So, yeah, her having changed her ways, fine. You can forgive her. You don't give her a promotion. Her being appointed to a position working under RFK Jr., horse crap. You hire someone who showed good judgment in times of crisis, not someone who showed bad judgment in times of crisis. So there are people out there who probably sincerely believe that she is responsible for what she said for the deaths of children, for the deaths of citizens, Americans. You can forgive her. You don't give her a raise for that. And whether or not she's not going to be any decision-making power. Oh, the other argument is you got to throw the Dems a bone. You know, appoint one person that's going to satisfy their needs so that it's not filled with anti-vaxxers. Horse crap. You're going to throw a bone to the people that just try to lock you up, bankrupt you, and kill you? You're going to throw a bone to people who are effectively confirmed ideological terrorists? You're going to go negotiate with them? Oh, show me some love. I gave you one of your candidates here who pushed the vax, face mask on kids, social distancing. Horse crap. You don't do that because it doesn't accomplish anything. They're not going to give you any good favors. You're never going to be in their good graces. They're going to try to take you down like they tried to take Trump down in 2016, like they took him down in 2020. This is policy that was at the base, effectively the cause of Trump not getting elected in 2020, changing the rules because of COVID. Oh, well, now we realize if you realize you were wrong on everything and that it actually physically hurt people, it actually traumatized and damaged a generation of children, you apologize and you might be forgiven, but you don't pick that person to head up the Surgeon General. Was something wrong with Lopato? I mean, from what I understand, Ben Carson didn't want the position. You pick someone who deserves the position. You don't throw any bones to your enemies because they're never going to accept them. They'll take that bone and they'll beat you right over the head with it the first chance they get. Say, boss. Well, I feel a little better, but I don't really. Does anybody else feel any better there? That's all I have to say on that. Snip, clip, share away. It's an unacceptable pick.
But yesterday, the CDC put out guidelines. If you are fully vaccinated, then it is safe to go outside, to go hiking, biking, to enjoy outdoor dining, to be around other people who are unvaccinated without a mask. Now, that is if you are fully vaccinated. If you are not vaccinated, you still have to take precautions around other people. Now, both vaccinated and unvaccinated groups have to still wear a mask in large public areas where it's crowded, like concerts and stadiums. And then when it comes to children, we've got a lot of data that tells us children under the age of 10 are low risk for carriers or for transmission of COVID. So we really need to keep that in mind, especially with the summer coming up with summer camps. CDC is still recommending that the young ones wear their masks when they are around others, stay in cohorts with camping. And the only times that they can remove their mask is if they're sleeping, if they're swimming, if they're eating, and they still have to maintain that social distancing as well. And I think part of that reasoning is because of the crowded areas with the campgrounds, and also kids can't yet be vaccinated. So right now it's 16 and older that we can vaccinate for Pfizer, for example, but we're still undergoing trials for the younger children to be vaccinated with Moderna, with Pfizer. So we're still waiting on that. Yeah, I mean, I think it's important to encourage and emphasize the benefits of being vaccinated. Number one, it can keep you out of the hospital. It can prevent you from dying. Not only are you protecting yourself, but you're protecting others in the community. And when you become vaccinated, we can open up. We can go to concerts. We can go to restaurants. We don't have to worry about social distancing and masking if we all can do our part. So ultimately, we're at about 30% of Americans being fully vaccinated right now. If we can get that number up to 70 to 85% per the CDC recommendations, then we can resume a normal lifestyle, and it's going to be worth it to me. Yeah, I think it's important because, again, only a third of Americans are fully vaccinated with these very safe and effective vaccines, Moderna and Pfizer. But we do have to get that number up higher before we can resume normal activity. I think that's very important. It's also important that if you start your first dose, you get your second dose, because there's many who are not making the appointments for their second doses, and you will not get get that 94, 95% safety and efficacy if you don't get both doses. That's critical.